My name is Kenneth. I am from the Umbraco HQ, where I work as a cloud team lead. And I try to mostly build microservices and improvements on the portal, and together with the rest of the cloud team. And that is basically my background for using Umbraco. I've only used it, or mostly used it as a headless CMS. Before I knew something was called headless at all. So that's my perspective of this. So I am going through. I have 3 different parts of this presentation. I built an app in Xamarin, hence the Mac. This accesses an API, and this API has content managed by Umbraco. And of course, we're using V8 and some of the new features in V8. And I have a bit of a disclaimer, because at HQ we are getting our food from a local supplier called Hus, and they have a certain love for beetroot. We have a growing number in the HQ that has gotten a strained relationship with beetroot, so I made an app so we can see what we're going to get, what the menu is going to be for the following week. And as you can see from this slide, I consider myself somewhat of an artiste, and I'm pretty sure you will as well when this presentation is over. So as I mentioned, this app is built on Xamarin. It's multilingual, utilizing an API. It's written in and it's managed by Umbraco 8. And I would like to give you a demo of the app so you can see what happens. We have it here. Let's try and run it. Wow. Okay, so here it is. This is the menu in Danish. Basically. So if we go back to Visual Studio, those of you who has been dabbling with console applications can see that there's something familiar here about this whole thing. So this is Xamarin, and this is basically a console application, that's running some native APIs, and it has a shared library here where some of the interesting stuff happens, but we'll get to that in a second. Oh, wrong one. So we have a client to get the menu or the schedule, and this client is basically a strongly typed HTTP client. It's really crude and simple, but it works. And it basically, I have a site on cloud that has an API that's we'll get to that in a second as well, where we send in a culture, the culture we get from the selector. I'll get to that later. And we basically just query the URL, and we get a schedule back that is deserialized by JSON convert. Okay, so let's do a demo. Oh. One. So so if you can see that this is what is it called? The schedule client. And once I change my languages, it changes the language. This utilizes the variants in Umbraco. And so if we go back, you notice that there were a little beetroot logo in the bottom, or in the on the left side of the application, or right side, I think it was, and there's a demo for that as well. So if we look at it, it's right here. When you click it, you'll get the possibility to order from Burger Shack, which is a local burger joint in Odense. I think it's a chain as well. And you can just order your food if you want to. So, enough about the clients. Let's go to the fun stuff. My API is built on top of 8. It's utilizing built-in services and the cache. So we have controllers. Some of you know, some of you don't. We have API controllers built into Umbraco that makes sure that every route is rendered as it should. And the first one I'm using is an Umbraco API controller. This is the one you saw before with the schedule client. And, okay, this is really not readable for you guys. Can anybody read this? No. Okay. So this basically, I'm gonna zoom out 1 second and point here and just go through it. So we're getting a helper and a localization service. So you ask the helper to get the content root, and you get all your languages by ISO code. And that way, when you put in the culture, you can just go into the where is it? Here. And I have a helper method called getStringProperty. Oh, sorry. which basically goes into the getProperty and .getValue and sends a culture with it and returns the content or the item as a string, which gives me the option to build up my DTOs and return these DTOs as a collection to the API. The other controller we have is an Umbraco authorized API controller. This is the one that the language selector uses. Well, it's not. It's the one that, well, I'll get to that in a second. That also uses an Umbraco controller, a Umbraco API controller. And the advantage of an Umbraco authorized API controller is that once you get your once you inherit that controller, you're able to make sure that you need to be logged into the back office before you can access the API. So what we're basically doing here is just returning all the languages. Oh, and I also have Zoom built into this one, sorry. Okay. I don't know what happened. So as you can see, I have some DTO conversion going on here. And yeah, I put that into an extension method because it's not really relevant. And we're just getting all the languages. But we should be aware here because we are actually using the iLocalization service, which is accessing the database directly. And but since that languages are not available in the cache, we need to do that in order to get all of them. So in the Umbraco 8 solution I built is relying heavily on variants for giving you the language data. It is using a custom content app to mimic the behavior of the app. It is using a custom property editor to allow us to pick languages. And it uses dependency injection. This is my favorite feature in V8 at all. I I can't tell you how long I've been waiting for this to happen natively. So, what are variants even? Variants are basically, well, they're called language variants, though they're not, but they are language variants of an item. And underneath, it relies on the languages I just showed you. And I'll just remove that mouse because it's annoying. So, yeah, we have a demo, and I will be logging into, oh, sorry, wrong one. So what we have here, sorry, is the whole launch schedule. This is basically my my content. It is one content type because we really don't need a collection of days because we have a fixed amount of work days in a week. We have 5, we know that, and it's always Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And what we do in order to make them vary is just allow varying by culture, and that is always also set on each element, and right here. And now, if we go into content, you can see that we have the languages, or we have the content in Danish. We can edit both of these. We also have a German. That's not created yet. And we have it in English, and we can actually edit that in split view. So now we have a split view of the 2 languages, and you can just put them right between or right next to each other. So the next thing we have is content apps. How many of you guys have built a content app before? Okay. So content apps are read-only. And why are they read-only? They are read-only because they need, that's annoying, because they read-only because they need to enhance the user experience and enhance the editor experience for all the editors. And it's not meant there to enrich content, it's meant to add on to content. They consist of the usual package manifest. Whenever you develop something for Umbraco, you usually have a package manifest. A package manifest in this case consists of a name. It consists of an alias that is unique. It consists of weight that decides the index in the row or in the tab order. It consists of an icon, in this case the scan icon, and it consists of a reference to a view, and that reference will come to later. And then we have a show property that I will show you in the next slide. And of course a JavaScript file controller that's basically a standard Angular controller in Umbraco. So the next part, the show, is that you can restrict access. And you restrict access because you don't necessarily want your content app to be shown on any content type you have. So if we look at it, we have, in this case, I have set the show property to there's this little plus in front of the content. The launch schedule document type that we were editing before, and a minus on everything else, which means it will only be shown on the launch schedule app. Or sorry, document type. So there's a controller, and I have Zoom on this also. This basically does, well, what it does is that you have you have an editor state that is supplied by the UI, by Umbraco, and that editor state has a content type alias, and right here we're just initializing some arrays. So at the very least, or at the very last, we run the init function. That's this one, where it basically goes through all the detection logic, and my detection logic is right here, and it basically checks whether the value includes beatroot, because this is a simple example. It could be anything else. You could have queried an external API or done whatever you want. Could have queried, you could query AI services, content, anything you want in order to enhance the experience. And it's because it's Danish, it also checks for rødbede, which is the Danish name for beetroot. And it returns an object that has the detected property and the detected day. So this is basically the property where it's in the description where it's detected, and the day is the day name that you saw before, called Monday or mandag på dansk. Sorry på Danish. Yeah, and a helper method giving us the active variant. There's of course also a view. That view, yeah, you'll see that in a second, but basically what is happening is we're looping through all the detected properties, so if we detect multiple days, it will write it out, stuff like that. Yes, and back to the demo. So as some of you may notice before, we had the beetroot detector right here, and it will give us the active variant. Refresh it. It will give us the active variant, and the beetroot is detected in the menu for tirsdag and for onsdag, which is Danish for Tuesday and Wednesday. And if we switch to English, it will detect it on Tuesday and Wednesday as well. So if we go back and edit it, that's it. Yeah. Let's add one to Monday as well. And we will publish that. And unfortunately, I didn't build it solid enough to automatically refresh, so I'll do that for you. And it's on Monday as well. So that's content apps for you. We also need a property editor in order to select your languages. Those of you who actually know property editors, whoa, what happened here? Oh no, sorry. Those of you, how many have built a property editor before? Yeah, okay. So in this property editor, we use dependency injection. And the reason why I'm using dependency injection is because we're getting the localization service, and as I explained before, we're returning all the languages in the controller. You can also register your own services in Umbraco, and that's if you implement the iComposer interface. You'll have a compose method where you can access a composition, and that composition allows you to register your interface and your concrete implementation. And as it's this is so you can actually access your own services in the Umbraco controllers, and that of course also applies to the to all your regular Umbraco controllers, not just API controllers. The content, sorry. We of course also have a package manifest for this, because this is a package. The package manifest for the property editor has the same as the other guy, as the content app. It has a language picker. It has an alias. Sorry, it has a name and an alias, an icon, and a group. And why does it have a group? It had a group when you access it and you add it to a new content type. You're supposed to find it in a group. And it has a view and a JavaScript file. And then it has a controller, like we just saw in the manifest. And I'm pretty sure I added some. I didn't add zoom to that one. So can you read it? All right. So, well, actually, we are querying the authorized API control from here. And once I've written the controller, I figured out that I could actually get the languages from the UI, from the JavaScript UI itself. But that kind of defeats the purpose of this presentation. So I decided to leave it in case anybody wants to use it at some point. It's right there, and it's really easy to get. But what I did was basically I query my controller, and that is automatically authorized, as you can see. And then I just add to my value, and checks if it includes my language ISO code, and that's about it. And I register on check change for my. I have some checkboxes. I'll show you that. You can see in the view that's here. We basically repeat all over the languages that's returned by the controller, and it has an ng change on check change, and the model is the selected value. And the value is ISO code, and we have a name, so it's pretty. And it's all very pretty. And there's a demo for that. So I have a Sitecore background. I know that's not supposed to be mentioned, but I have. And in Sitecore you build settings, and that's about it, what I like about Sitecore. So, but what we're getting here is languages in the language picker, and you can just pick them off as you please, save, and they will be accessible in the API. And if we go in here, and we go to these settings here, document type, we can add another language setting to this one. Oh, there it was. We added it to pickers, the language picker. So we just add it as per usual, submit. Wow, am I losing my internet connection here? Nope. And save. So now we have a language 2, works exactly the same as the other one. And refresh. Yeah, and now we have the languages, and that's all there is to it. So it still works the same way as it does in V7. Actually, I I built this in order to make sure I built this based off of the V7 documentation. So it's still the same. And I think that's the last slide. So I just want to say thank you for listening to me and my ramblings about V8, because I think it's an awesome product. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Or you can also hit me up on Twitter or email, because I'm old. And Instagram, that's the official Instagram down there, most of you know. I don't know if you guys know that I'm currently the Chief SOME Officer of Umbraco, and I've been so for the last 2 days. And I would like to get an official presentation picture of you guys. So can you guys please stand up and look active? Or at least engaged? Can you do this sideways? I don't know. Probably not. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm really bad at this. Yes, I am. Re-engage, please. Hey. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I